My 10-year-old grandson whispered tremulously, "Dad plans to take your house away as soon as you fly to Hawaii." The betrayal by my son-in-law, who had been living off me for years, hit me like a hammer blow. I immediately cancelled my vacation and began my hunt. A week later, the unthinkable happened. Revenge that turned everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Wesley raised his wine glass, grinning like he'd already won something. To family and to Orville's Hawaiian adventure. 2 weeks of beaches and relaxation. You've earned it after all those years on the bench. I lifted my glass, watching him over the rim. That smile didn't reach his eyes. And don't worry about the house, Wesley continued, leaning back in his chair, my chair at my table, with a familiarity that suddenly felt invasive. We'll keep everything running smoothly. I appreciate that, Wesley, I said, setting down my glass. Across from me, Celeste laughed too loudly at something her husband hadn't quite finished saying. My daughter twisted her napkin into a rope, her gaze fixed somewhere near the salt shaker. Never on me, she touched her wedding ring, spinning it around her finger in quick, nervous circles. Tyler pushed pepperoni across his plate, his favorite pizza, untouched. "Dad, you did remember to set up the mail hold, right?" Celeste asked, her voice pitched higher than normal. "And the plant watering? We can handle all that for you. I've traveled before, Celeste. I know the routine." Wesley checked his phone. 3rd time in 10 minutes. He ran his hand along the back of his chair, almost proprietary, then glanced at his watch. Celeste reached for her water glass. Mist had to steady it with both hands. Something was wrong. 30 years on the bench teaches you to watch without appearing to watch. Read the room. Spot the lie before it's spoken. And right now, my dining room felt like a courtroom where I didn't know the charges yet. Tyler blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "Tyler, you've barely eaten," I said, keeping my voice gentle. "That's your favorite pepperoni and mushroom. What's bothering you, buddy?" The boy's lips parted. Wesley's head snapped up from his phone. "Actually," Celeste said, standing abruptly. "Wesley, could you help me grab dessert from the kitchen?" Wesley hesitated, watching his son. Then he followed my daughter out. Their voices carried through the doorway. Low, urgent. I caught fragments. Timing documents ready. Tomorrow morning. Tyler's small hand gripped mine under the table. "Grandpa." His voice barely made it across the space between us. I didn't mean to listen, but he glanced toward the kitchen, tears spilling over. "Dad told Mom that when you fly out, they're taking your house. He said, you're too old and won't be able to do anything about it." The words landed like a gavel strike. Final. Damning. I felt my blood turn cold. That familiar sensation from decades of hearing verdicts. But this time, I was on the wrong side. This time, I was the victim. "Tyler." I squeezed his hand. "Everything will be okay." Footsteps approached. I released Tyler's hand, picked up my fork, cut into the pizza I could no longer taste. My face remained neutral, calm, exactly how it had looked through 1,000 trials. "Everything okay out here?" Wesley asked, eyes narrowing at his son. "Tyler, you feeling all right, sport?" "He's fine, just tired." "School starts soon, doesn't it?" Celeste hustled Tyler toward the stairs moments later, her hand firm on his shoulder. The boy looked back at me once, his expression caught between fear and hope. Wesley headed for the guest room, his office now. I followed at a distance, watched him grab his briefcase. He held it close, protective, a lawyer guarding evidence. At the front door, Wesley turned back. "Enjoy paradise, Orville. When you get back, who knows? Maybe we'll have some surprises for you." I met his gaze. I'm sure you will, Wesley. I'm sure you will. The door closed. Their footsteps retreated upstairs to the master suite that had been mine and Eleanor's for 30 years before she passed. Now it belonged to them. Everything belonged to them, apparently. I stood alone in the dining room, 4 place settings, 3 empty wine glasses, Tyler's uneaten pizza. My family had just plotted against me in my own home, under my own roof, while eating food I'd paid for at a table I'd owned longer than Wesley had been alive. I walked to the window, watched the upstairs lights flick on. Wesley's laugh filtered down through the walls, loud, triumphant. He thought he'd won. Upstairs, I heard movement, water running, Celeste's voice muffled, Tyler's door closing. They were settling in for the night. Comfortable, confident. Wesley had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Instead, I sat in my study. Tyler's words echoing, "They're taking your house. You're too old to do anything about it." Wesley was wrong about the second part anyway. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I called the airline. The representative sounded cheerful, apologetic about the cancellation fee. $1,200 gone. I didn't care. Money meant nothing if I had no home to return to. Personal emergency, I told her. I won't be traveling. By 8 o'clock, I was in the kitchen scrambling eggs when Celeste appeared. She startled at finding me there. "Dad, I thought you'd have left for the airport by now. Flight's not until noon." I kept my voice easy, unremarkable. "Wanted one more homemade breakfast." She poured coffee with shaking hands. That's nice." Wesley emerged 15 minutes later, already dressed for work. His expression flickered when he saw me. Surprise, then something harder to read. Calculation, maybe. "Running late this morning?" he asked. "Plenty of time. Want some eggs?" "No, I'm good." Big day at the office. He kissed Celeste's cheek, grabbed his travel mug. "Have a great trip, Orville. Don't worry about anything here." "I won't." Celeste drove Tyler to summer camp at 9. I stood at the window, watched their car disappear down the street. Wesley left 30 minutes later in his BMW, the one I'd co-signed for. I waited another 10 minutes, listened to the house settle into silence. Then I walked to Wesley's office. The briefcase sat on his desk, unlocked, arrogant. He felt that safe. Inside, I found a folder labeled Property Transfer. My hand steadied as I opened it. Years of reviewing evidence, of maintaining composure in chambers took over. I became the judge again, analytical, detached. The first document was a power of attorney, my signature at the bottom, except I'd never signed it. The forgery was good, excellent, even same slant, same pressure points, but the date was wrong. I'd been in Miami that week presiding over a maritime case. I had hotel receipts, court records, witnesses. The second document was a sales agreement. My home listed for $670,000. I'd had it appraised last year at $800,000. Wesley was dumping it fast, probably to some investment company that wouldn't ask questions. The buyer was listed. Cornerstone Property Solutions LLC. Closing date 3 days from now. 3 days. He'd planned to have it finished before I returned from Hawaii. I photographed every page with my phone. The forged POA, the sales agreement, the escrow instructions, Wesley's handwriting in the margins, calculating his cut, notes about wire transfers and offshore accounts. In 30 years of presiding over fraud cases, I'd seen every scheme imaginable, and this one, my own son-in-law, forging documents to steal my home, ranked among the most brazen. I returned everything exactly as I'd found it, closed the briefcase, left the office. Back in my study, I examined the photos. The evidence was clear, prosecutable. I could call the police right now, have Wesley arrested by noon, but that wasn't enough. An arrest meant lawyers, trials, delays. It meant Celeste posting bail, Wesley manipulating her. Months of legal maneuvering, and at the end, maybe a conviction, maybe not. Juries were unpredictable. I'd seen guilty men walk free on technicalities. No, this required something different, something complete. Wesley wanted to strip me of everything. Fine, I'd return the favor. I picked up my phone, searched for notary services in St. Petersburg, found one with good reviews. Volkov Notary Services, professional, independent, available today. My hand hovered over the call button. Once I made this move, there was no going back. This wasn't about law anymore. This was about justice, the kind that doesn't come from courtrooms. I pressed dial. Volkov Notary Services. My name is Orville Wallace, I said. I need to make a statement under oath today before someone tries to forge my signature again. Wesley's fork froze midair when I walked into the kitchen. Orville, his voice pitched higher than normal. I thought you'd be over the Pacific by now. What happened? I poured coffee with steady hands. Took my usual seat at the breakfast table. Didn't feel right yesterday. Decided to postpone a couple weeks. The color drained from his face. He set down the fork, forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Are you okay? Should you see a doctor? I'm fine. Just needed more time to prepare. Celeste appeared in the doorway, dish towel twisted in her hands. She glanced between us, reading the tension. But you've been planning this for months. Wesley leaned forward, aggressive now. The reservation, the hotel. I've made my decision, Wesley. He tried 3 more times over breakfast. Different angles. First concern about my health, then guilt about wasting money. Finally, practical arguments about perfect weather windows and hotel policies. It seems like a waste is all I'm saying. You've been looking forward to this. Celeste and I can handle everything here. I looked at him over the rim of my coffee mug. I'm sure you had plans for my absence. Just how sitting too quick, too defensive, making sure everything runs smoothly. How thoughtful. I'd watched enough witnesses squirm on the stand to recognize panic. Wesley was drowning, and he knew it. That forged power of attorney in his office dated yesterday, the day I was supposed to be leaving, now worthless. His entire timeline had collapsed. At 10 o'clock, I drove downtown to a small office on Central Avenue. Professional brass nameplate. Richard Volkov, Notary Public. The man who greeted me was maybe 50, precise in his movements, reading glasses perched on his nose. He listened while I explained what I needed. This is unusual, he said, setting down his pen. You're making a statement that you've never executed a power of attorney. That's correct. I have reason to believe someone may attempt to use forged documents in my name. His expression shifted. Professional concern replaced routine politeness. That's a serious allegation. Have you contacted the authorities? I'm building a case first. I need documentation that I never authorized any such documents. Volkov nodded slowly. I'll certify this with today's date and time. Keep multiple copies. I watched him type the statement, print it on official letterhead, apply his seal and embosser. The thump of the stamp was satisfying. First, concrete protection in place. He handed me 3 copies. If anyone tries to use a power of attorney in your name, this proves it's fraudulent. That's exactly what I need. Linda Saunders' law office occupied the 3rd floor of a building overlooking the waterfront. Estate planning certificates lined the walls. She offered coffee, which I declined, and then got straight to business. You mentioned on the phone you had questions about property rights. My daughter and son-in-law live with me, I said. They pay no rent, no formal lease. I'd like to know my options for removing them from my home. She pulled a legal pad closer, made notes. Florida law is clear. It's your property. Adult children living there without a lease are considered tenants at will, and I can terminate that will. 15 days written notice. If they refuse to leave, you file for eviction. Given no lease and no rent payments, the court will side with you. How long does the eviction process take in Penless County? If uncontested, 3 to 4 weeks total. If contested, maybe 6. I filed that information away. Weapons in the arsenal. One more thing, I said. What about protecting assets from fraud? Saunders looked at me carefully. Is someone attempting to defraud you? Possibly. I'm taking preventative measures. Document everything. If you have evidence of fraud, file a police report. The sooner the better. Not yet, I said, but soon. Back home, the house was empty. Wesley at work, or wherever he went when he claimed to be working. Celeste had taken Tyler to the community pool. I went directly to Wesley's office. The briefcase sat exactly where I'd left it. Inside, the forged documents remained in their folder. I photographed each page again, this time with my phone's timestamp feature activated. Date, time, location, metadata, evidence with a digital signature. I uploaded copies to 3 different cloud storage services, created a password-protected folder on my computer, printed physical copies, and sealed them in an envelope. In my 30 years on the bench, I'd seen cases won and lost on documentation, chain of custody, provable timelines. I was building something airtight. That night, after the house settled into silence, I returned to Wesley's office one final time. The voice-activated recorder fit in my palm. Small, digital, 16-hour battery life. I'd bought it that afternoon at an electronics store, paying cash. In 30 years on the bench, I'd ruled on wiretap evidence. I knew the legal lines. This was my home, my office, technically my desk that Wesley had appropriated. What he said here wasn't protected by any reasonable expectation of privacy. Still, my hand hesitated before activating it. Then I thought of Tyler's face, his whispered warning, the fear in his eyes. I pressed record. The device went into voice activation mode. Silent unless sound triggered it. I slid it behind a row of law books on the shelf, ironic placement where it would capture the desk area and any phone conversations. Tested it once with a whisper. The LED blinked green working. I left the office, closed the door behind me, returned to my bedroom. The trap was set. Tomorrow I'd know what Wesley was really planning. Tonight, I'd let him think he still had the advantage. I went to bed satisfied. Wesley changed tactics overnight. At breakfast, he mentioned the stairs casually, as if the thought had just occurred to him. Those are pretty steep for someone your age, Orville. Ever think about a singlestory place? I looked at him over my coffee. I've been climbing them for 15 years. Sure, but he smiled like he was doing me a favor. Things change. We're just thinking about your quality of life. The campaign had begun. By lunch, he'd left a brochure for assisted living communities on the kitchen counter. Just informational, he said when I picked it up. Some of these places are really nice, like resorts. At dinner, Celeste joined in. Dad, we worry about you being alone in this big house. What if something happened? You're here, I pointed out. I'm hardly alone. But we won't always be. Wesley again, cutting his steak with deliberate precision. Tyler's getting older. We've been thinking about getting our own place. Then what? I set down my fork. Are you planning to move out, Wesley? Eventually. Everyone does. Then you'll be here by yourself. And honestly, he gestured at the room. This is a lot of house for one person. I'll manage. Will you though? He leaned forward. I saw you struggling with those boxes in the garage last week. Heavy lifting at your age isn't smart. I wasn't struggling. You looked unsteady. My jaw tightened. 30 years of maintaining courtroom composure kept my voice level. I appreciate your concern, Wesley, but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. For now, maybe. Celeste's voice was soft, apologetic. But, Dad, we're just trying to plan ahead. Be realistic. Realistic? The word hung in the air between us. Tyler pushed peas around his plate, eyes fixed downward. The boy hadn't looked at me directly all evening. This conversation is over, I said. Wesley exchanged a glance with Celeste. Some unspoken communication passed between them. We're just trying to help, he said finally. That's all. After dinner, I heard them in the living room. Whispered conversation punctuated by the clicking of a laptop keyboard. I walked past, casual, caught a glimpse of the screen. Real estate listings, condominiums, 55 and older communities. They were shopping for my future home. At midnight, when the house had been dark and quiet for over an hour, I retrieved the recorder from Wesley's office. Back in my study door locked, I plugged it into my computer. The file was 30 minutes long. Recorded around 7 p.m. while we'd been having dinner. Wesley's voice came through clearly. Collapsed. The POAs dated wrong. He postponed the whole trip. Silence while the other person spoke. Then Wesley again. I know, Mark. I know, but we're out of time here. The second mortgage payment is due in 10 days. 85,000? My breath caught. Second mortgage on my house. What choice do I have? Wesley's voice rose, frustrated. We either move forward or I lose everything. The business, the car, all of it. More silence. Plan B. Yeah. Get him declared incompetent. If we can demonstrate he's not capable of managing his affairs, we can petition for guardianship. Ice ran down my spine. It's not that hard. Missed medications, confusion, memory problems. We document everything. Build a case. 3 months, maybe 4. Then we have legal authority to sell. I gripped the edge of my desk. A nursing home, probably someplace nice. He'd be taken care of. We'd have power of attorney. That's actually legal this time. Sell the house. Pay off the debts. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. Everyone except me. Erased from my own life, institutionalized. Stripped of autonomy. While Wesley sold my home and pocketed the proceeds. I'm not backing down from this, Mark. We're too far in. Just trust me. I'll make it work. The call ended. The recording continued for another minute. Shuffling papers, a chair scraping, then silence. I sat in my study until 2 a.m. listening to that recording. 3 more times. Each word carved itself into my memory. Get him declared incompetent. Nursing home. Build a case. Wesley wasn't just after my house. He wanted to erase me completely. For 3 years, I'd provided my daughter and her husband with free housing, asking nothing in return except basic respect. And in exchange, they'd plotted to institutionalize me and steal everything I'd worked for. The debt surprised me. $85,000 on a second mortgage. I'd never signed authorization for that either. Another forgery, another crime. But the incompetency plan, that was worse than theft. That was personal degradation, public humiliation, the kind of revenge I'd seen destroy people in court. Not me, not ever. I saved the recording to my phone, my computer, 3 cloud services, made it permanent, indestructible. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I had calls to make. The first one would be to Linda Saunders, the property attorney. Time to serve notice. Morning light found me at my desk, the recording still on my phone. Wesley's voice still in my head. Get him declared incompetent. Nursing home. I'd planned to serve eviction notice today. 15 days, then they'd be gone. But that recording changed things. Wesley wasn't just stealing. He was desperate. $85,000 in debt. A second mortgage I'd never authorized. Another forgery I'd need to investigate. And desperation made people sloppy. Made them reach for bigger scores, involve more people, create more evidence. I could evict him now, or I could use his greed against him. The choice was obvious. At 9:30, I placed my bank statement on the coffee table in the living room. Navy blue logo. Account summary clearly visible. Checking account balance $450,000. I arranged it carefully, isolated it from other papers, made sure anyone entering would see it immediately. Then I walked to the kitchen for coffee. 2 minutes later, Wesley appeared. I watched from the doorway, staying out of sight. He stopped when he saw the document, leaned closer. His eyes widened. He glanced toward the kitchen, pulled out his phone, snapped a picture, stepped back quickly. I counted to 5, then walked in carrying my mug. Morning, Wesley. He jumped slightly. Orville, morning. Beautiful day. I gathered the papers from the table as if just remembering them. Didn't mean to leave these out. No problem. His voice was different, lighter, friendly. You seem relaxed. Good night's sleep. Well enough, you? Great. Great. He was almost vibrating with energy. Hey, listen. About yesterday, I may have come on too strong. Family stuff, you know. We're good, right? I measured him over my coffee cup. Yesterday he'd been hostile, patronizing, building a case for my incompetence. Today he was my best friend. Are we, Wesley? Of course. I just worry sometimes. But you're clearly handling everything fine. The shark had smelled blood in the water. That afternoon, I initiated the conversation. I've been thinking about my finances, I said, finding him in the living room. All that money just sitting in the bank. Inflation eating at it. Real estate might be smarter. Rental income appreciation. Wesley nearly dropped his iPad. Absolutely. That's actually brilliant timing. The market right now. I'm in real estate. You know, there are some incredible opportunities. I don't know much about investment properties. That's what I'm here for. He leaned forward eager. I handle this professionally. I could show you some options, walk you through everything. Returns are excellent right now. I let uncertainty show on my face. It's a lot of money to risk. Investment isn't risk if you know what you're doing. And I do. He pulled up listings on his tablet. Look, here's a 3-bedroom in Gulfport. Solid rental market. Or this duplex in Largo. 2 tenants, double income. These look expensive. That's what it takes to make real money. But with $450,000 to invest, you could. He caught himself. I mean, depending on your budget. I said nothing. Let him wonder if I'd noticed. Just let me show you a few properties, he continued. No commitment. Then you can decide. I should probably run this by my financial advisor first. Get a professional opinion. His face tightened. Brief flash of panic before the smile returned. Sure, of course, but these opportunities don't last long. Good properties move fast. And honestly, Orville, financial advisors charge hefty fees just to tell you what any decent real estate agent already knows. Maybe I'll think about it. Just a look. That's all I'm asking. I pretended to consider. All right, show me what you have in mind. The relief on his face was almost comical. At 3 o'clock, I drove to the Penless County Prosecutor's office downtown, 7th floor. Assistant District Attorney Maria Chen. I slid the documents across her desk. Forged power of attorney. Sales agreement. Timeline of events typed in precise legal format. Old habits. Chen examined each page carefully. Mr. Wallace, this is clear forgery, identity theft, attempted fraud, multiple felonies. We can arrest him today. I don't want arrests yet. She looked up, surprised. Why not? He's not working alone. There's a financial partner, possibly others. If you move now, they scatter. I'll have one conviction. Maybe the rest walk free. What are you proposing? Give me 2 weeks. I'll deliver everyone involved with evidence of the full conspiracy. Then you can prosecute completely. Chen tapped her pen against the desk. That's asking a lot. If he attempts any fraud before then, you'll be the first call I make. But he won't. I'm controlling the situation. She studied me for a long moment. You were a judge. 30 years circuit court. It shows. She opened a case file. 2 weeks, Your Honor, but I want regular updates. You'll have them. She assigned a case number, logged the evidence. The legal machinery was ready, just waiting for my signal. That evening, I heard Wesley on the phone in his office. Excited whispers, pacing footsteps that made the floorboards creak. I didn't need the recorder to know what he was saying. His body language told the story. Urgent gestures, rapid speech, the manic energy of someone who thought they'd found salvation. $450,000 in liquid assets, a target who wanted investment advice, a score big enough to solve all his problems. He'd taken the bait completely. Through the wall, Wesley's voice carried excited, urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. I knew that tone. I'd heard it from hundreds of defendants who thought they'd found an angle. A way out, a score. I gave it 3 days. Let him think about that money. Let him plan. Let him make calls to whoever he was working with. Then I'd spring the rest of the trap. 3 days. I let Wesley sweat through 3 days of waiting, watching him grow more eager, more friendly, more desperate to close his deal. Every morning he'd casually mention real estate markets. Every afternoon he'd show me properties on his tablet. Every evening he'd pace in his office making calls. On the 3rd day I gave him what he wanted. Wesley, I said that morning, finding him in the kitchen. Let's look at those properties. His face lit up. Really? That's fantastic. I've identified 3 excellent options. When were you thinking? Today works. Perfect. Let me grab my keys. The first property was a foreclosure in Seoul. Small ranch house, peeling paint, overgrown yard. Wesley talked fast, pointing out potential. Needs cosmetic work, but structurally sound. Listed at $240,000. With $20,000 in renovations, you could rent it for $1,800 monthly. Great return. I walked the perimeter, noting the foreclosure notice still taped to the door. When does the legal hold clear? Wesley hesitated. Legal hold? Foreclosures can't sell until the bank processes all paperwork, court filings, title clearance. Usually takes months. Right. Yes, but my contact at the bank can expedite. Your contact can't override county procedures. I photographed the foreclosure notice with my phone. Next property. The second house sat in Clearwater. Larger, better maintained, but something felt off immediately. Estate sale, Wesley explained. Owner passed away. Family wants quick sale. Listed at $290. I pulled up property records on my phone while he talked. Probate process hasn't completed. No certificate of estate administration filed. That's just paperwork. Paperwork that prevents legal title transfer. I took more photos. You can't sell what you don't legally own yet. The estate has to clear probate first. Wesley's jaw tightened. You're being very technical about this. I'm being careful with $400,000. That's just smart. Of course. The third property is much cleaner. No complications. The third house was in St. Pete Beach. 2-story updated kitchen, decent curb appeal, listed at $380,000. This is the one, Wesley said as we pulled up. Market value, clean title, immediate availability, perfect investment property. I walked through slowly, noting details. Dated bathroom fixtures, water stains on the ceiling suggesting roof problems. Carpet worn thin in high-tra areas. Who's the seller? Private owner Mark Parker. He's relocating for work. Needs quick sale. Mark, the name from the recording. Wesley's accomplice. I'd like to see comparable sales in the neighborhood. Wesley pulled them up on his tablet. Similar properties sold between $350 and $400 recently. I looked at the numbers. The comps were real, but carefully selected. Larger houses, better locations, recent renovations. This house was worth $280 at most, maybe $290 in a competitive bidding situation. Wesley and his partner were trying to pocket nearly $100,000 in markup from a man they thought was too old and too trusting to check. The price seems high, I said carefully. That's current market. Properties in this area are hot right now. I'd need my own appraisal. Absolutely, but the seller wants to move fast. If we wait too long, someone else will grab it. Classic pressure tactic. I'd seen it 1,000 times in fraud cases. I'm interested, I said. But I have conditions, Wesley brightened. Name them. Everything goes through my notary, Richard Vokoff, and my attorney, Linda Saunders. They review all documents before I sign anything. His smile froze. That's pretty unusual for a straightforward property purchase. It's $400,000, Wesley. I don't care if it's unusual. Attorneys and notaries add fees. Delays. I don't care about that either. Those are my terms. Silence in the car. Wesley gripped the steering wheel. Knuckles white. Mark the seller. He's expecting a clean, quick transaction. Then Mark can accept my conditions or find another buyer. Wesley's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Text message probably from Mark himself. Let me talk to him, Wesley said finally. Your notary, your attorney. I'll explain the situation. Good. I'll contact them tomorrow. Have them review everything before we proceed. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. Fine. I settled back in my seat, watching the overpriced house disappear in the side mirror. $380,000 for a property worth $280 at most. $25,000 in commission for Wesley. Probably another $20,000 or $30,000 in kickback from his partner Mark. He'd agreed to put all of that under the scrutiny of my notary and my attorney because he was desperate, because he was greedy, because he thought I was naive. The trap had teeth now. Time to let it close. The next morning, I met with Richard Volov first, then Linda Saunders. I provided all the documents, property listing, purchase agreement, comparable sales data. Volkov examined the ownership records, his expression darkening. He looked up sharply. Mr. Wallace, there's a serious problem here. The property is owned by Sunset Properties LLC. Your son-in-law, Wesley Parker, is listed as a 15% member through a subsidiary entity. So, he was selling me a property he partially owns. Without disclosure, that's fraud. Criminal fraud. Linda Saunders was equally blunt. She spread the documents across her desk, shaking her head. This isn't just unethical, it's illegal. The markup alone suggests conspiracy. Add in his ownership stake and his failure to disclose the conflict of interest and you have multiple felonies. Can you document all of this in writing? I'll have a formal opinion ready today. And Orville. I have to report this to the State Real Estate Commission. He'll lose his license. Good. Back home, I assembled everything in my study. The forged power of attorney. Property ownership documents. Comparable sales showing the $100,000 fraud. The recording of Wesley plotting my institutionalization. Professional legal opinions. Bank statements. Timeline of events. I arranged them in specific order on my desk. Prosecution methodology. Building to a verdict. Tyler was at a friend's house. I'd arranged that. The boy shouldn't witness what was coming. At 6 o'clock, I called a family meeting. Wesley and Celeste entered the dining room to find me seated at the head of the table. 2 chairs positioned on either side. Nothing on the table except my folders. Sit down, I said, cold, formal. Both of you. Wesley's eyes narrowed. What's this about? Your crimes? All of them. Celeste's hand went to her throat. Dad, what? Be quiet. You'll speak when I'm finished. I opened the first folder, slid the forged power of attorney across the table. Recognize this? Your forged power of attorney. My signature, you claimed, except I never signed it. I can explain. I slid the property ownership documents. You're part owner of the property you tried to sell me for $100,000 over market value. Wesley's voice rose. That's just business. I pressed play on my phone. Wesley's voice filled the room. Get him declared incompetent. Nursing home. I don't have a choice. $85,000 in debt. The color drained from his face. Celeste started crying. I slid the professional legal opinions across. 2 attorneys confirmed multiple felonies. Forgery, fraud, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty. Silence. Just Celeste's quiet sobs. You have 2 paths. I said, first I take this to police. Forgery carries 5 years in Florida. Real estate fraud adds more. You'll both be charged as conspirators. I let that sink in. Second path. You have 15 days to vacate my house completely. You sign a release of all claims to my property. I place the eviction notice on the table, then the release form. Choose now. Wesley exploded, surged to his feet. The chair crashed backward. You can't do this. This is our home. We have rights. He leaned over the table, pointing, shouting, threatening legal battles, family exposure, counterclaims. I remained seated, hands folded, unmoved. Are you finished? Everything you just said is legally meaningless. Celeste reached across the table, fingers stretching toward me. Dad, please, we can fix this. Wesley made mistakes. Don't destroy our family. She invoked memories, teaching her to ride a bike. Her mother's death, family holidays. My expression didn't change. You made your choice when you supported this scheme. You chose to betray me. But we're family. Family doesn't forge documents. Family doesn't plot institutionalization. Family doesn't steal. Her hand withdrew. Wesley sank back into his chair. I stood, gathering my documents in reverse order, methodical, controlled. 15 days. If you're not gone, I file eviction and criminal charges simultaneously. I paused at the doorway. The prosecutor already has copies of everything. I filed a complaint 4 days ago. They're ready to arrest you both. The only reason they haven't is because I asked them to wait. I walked to my study, locked the door, sat at my desk. Through the walls, I heard Wesley's rage. Celeste sobbing. Something crashed. Oh, let them rage. Let them break things. In 15 days, they'd be gone. Or so I thought. I'd underestimated Wesley's desperation once before when I postponed Hawaii. I was about to make the same mistake again. The next morning, I'd learned exactly how far he was willing to go. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Wesley and Celeste sat at breakfast in perfect silence. No tears from her, no rage from him, just cold, determined calm. I should have recognized it. In 30 years on the bench, I'd seen it before. The moment a defendant stops fighting the charges and starts fighting the system, the shift from denial to strategy. But I was tired from the confrontation, satisfied with my victory, and I missed it completely. The courier arrived that afternoon. Orville Wallace. The woman held a clipboard. Yes. Sign here, please. Legal documents. Official seal. I opened the envelope in my study. Petition for emergency determination of incapacity filed by Wesley Parker and Celeste Wallace Parker, concerned family members, requesting court order for psychiatric evaluation and guardianship proceedings. They were trying to have me declared incompetent. My hands shook, not from fear, from rage. Wesley had listened to my ultimatum, gone home, and filed the exact attack he'd planned all along. The nursing home plan, the incompetency proceeding, everything from that recorded phone call. I called Linda Saunders immediately. They actually filed it, she said, reading through the petition I'd emailed. This is be bold given the evidence you have against them. Can they win? No, but they can delay. Competency hearings take time. During that time, your eviction notice is complicated. Your criminal complaint gets questioned. They create doubt about everything. What do I do? Attend the psychiatric evaluation. Answer honestly. Demonstrate competence. Then we fight this in court. Wesley's smear campaign started that evening. I heard him talking to the neighbor over the fence. Voice pitched to Carrie. Really worried about him. He's been acting strange, paranoid, accusatory. We think he might need help. 2 days later, another neighbor stopped me at the mailbox. Orville, I heard you've been having some difficulties. If you need anything, I'm fine. Wesley mentioned you'd been confused lately, forgetting things, making accusations that don't make sense. I smiled tightly. Wesley is facing criminal charges for fraud. Consider the source. But doubt had entered her eyes. For a week, I endured their harassment. Late-night music from their room. Staged conversations in the hallway about my supposed confusion. Celeste loudly asking Wesley, should we hide the car keys? What if he gets lost? Every neighbor they encountered received the same story. Elderly man, declining mental state, family concerned for his safety. Tyler became a weapon. They coached him to act worried around me, to ask if I was feeling okay, to mention to his teacher that Grandpa was acting different. I documented everything, photographed staged incidents, recorded conversations, built my counter case. The psychiatric evaluation came on day 5. 2 hours with Dr. Patricia Morrison, cognitive tests, memory assessments, questions designed to reveal impairment. I passed everything. Perfect scores. She seemed almost disappointed. Mr. Wallace, I see no evidence of diminished capacity. Your cognitive function is excellent for your age, or any age, frankly. Will you state that in your report? I will, but understand the court will still hold a hearing. Your son-in-law's attorneys will present their case. This process takes time. Time I didn't have. Time Wesley was using to destroy my reputation, turn my community against me, and remain in my house. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out, 2 weeks of living under siege in my own home. I barely slept. Every sound made me alert. Every conversation in the hall was potential evidence or potential attack. My face looked hollow in the mirror. Older, tired. Wesley noticed, smiled. "You should rest, Orville. You look exhausted, stressed, almost unstable." I walked away, documented the interaction, added it to the growing file. The night before the hearing, I sat in my study, surrounded by evidence, medical reports showing perfect cognitive function, documentation of Wesley's harassment, his debts, his crimes, the recording, the forged documents, professional opinions, everything I needed to win. But winning would take time, and during that time I'd live in this house with them, under attack. My reputation questioned, my sanity debated in public court. Wesley thought he was smart, thought he'd found the perfect strategy. He hadn't. Because tomorrow, in that courtroom, I had surprises he didn't know about, evidence he didn't expect. I'd been a judge for 30 years. I knew how to handle a courtroom, and I knew how to win. I dressed carefully that morning. Dark suit, pressed shirt, polished shoes. Every detail mattered, visual authority before I spoke a word. In my study, I reviewed the evidence one final time. 3 psychiatric evaluations, all perfect. Neighbor statements attesting to my competence, documentation of Wesley's harassment, timestamps, photos, noise complaints. I left the house at 7:30 avoiding Wesley and Celeste. Drove to Penless County Courthouse through light traffic. Linda Saunders met me at the entrance. "Ready?" "I've been ready for 30 years. The courtroom was formal. Polished wood. Florida state seal behind the bench. Judge Margaret Brennan presiding. We'd served together years ago, though in different courts. She'd be fair. Wesley sat with his attorney, Burton Hayes, aggressive type who made his living on overconfident openings. Celeste was in the gallery, pale and nervous. Tyler wasn't there, too young for this. Judge Brennan entered. We stood. "Be seated, Mr. Hayes. This is your petition. Proceed." Hayes launched into his case. Orville Wallace, elderly man, declining mental state, cancelled Hawaii trip irrationally, made paranoid accusations against loving family, hostile, confused, potentially dangerous to himself. Wesley testified. Concerned son-in-law just wanted to help. Orville had been erratic, aggressive, making wild claims about forged documents. Hayes showed photos of the house, ones Wesley had staged, to suggest neglect. Judge Brennan listened, but her expression was skeptical. "Mr. Hayes, you're asking this court to declare Orville Wallace, a former district court judge with 30 years of distinguished service, mentally incompetent. With respect, Your Honor, mental decline can affect anyone. Age doesn't discriminate. The family has serious concerns." Concerns based on what specifically? Paranoid accusations, irrational decisions, hostility toward family members attempting to help him. Judge Brennan leaned back. Or a competent man responding appropriately to actual threats. "Let's see the evidence." I stood. Linda handed the judge 3 evaluations. "Your Honor, we have reports from 3 independent psychiatrists. Dr. Helen Morrison, Dr. James Chen, Dr. Patricia Vasquez all examined Judge Wallace within the past week." Brennan read carefully. Her eyebrows rose. "Excellent cognitive function. No signs of dementia. Reasoning skills intact. Emotionally appropriate responses. Mr. Hayes. These are damning to your case. Those doctors only saw him briefly. His family lives with him." "Your Honor," I said, "may I present evidence of what they actually see?" I placed the forged power of attorney before the judge. The paranoid accusations Mr. Hayes mentioned. I accused my son-in-law of forging a power of attorney in my name. Here's why. Judge Brennan examined the document. This purports to be your signature. It purports to be. It isn't. I never signed that document. I have 3 handwriting experts who will testify it's forged. I added the real estate fraud evidence, the ownership records showing Wesley's hidden stake, the overpriced property, the comparable sales. Then I pressed play on my phone. Wesley's voice filled the courtroom. Get him declared incompetent. Nursing home. I've got $85,000 in debt. We either move forward or I lose everything. Judge Brennan's face hardened. Your Honor, Hayes tried to interrupt. This is outside the scope. This is exactly within scope. Brennan cut him off. This explains why Judge Wallace made those paranoid accusations. They weren't paranoid. They were accurate. She looked toward the gallery. Is there a prosecutor present? Assistant District Attorney Maria Chen stood. Yes, Your Honor. The state has an open investigation. We're prepared to file charges today. The courtroom atmosphere shifted. This wasn't a competency hearing anymore. This was a crime. Then I introduced the financial documents. That $450,000 Wesley mentioned, it included $180,000 my daughter Celeste inherited from her grandmother 3 years ago. I was holding it in trust for her safety. I slid the trust documents and bank transfers across to the judge. He withdrew that money without Celeste's knowledge or consent. He gambled it away on cryptocurrency debts. She never knew. Celeste in the gallery went white. What? Her voice cracked. Wesley, what is he talking about? Wesley wouldn't look at her. You spent my grandmother's money. She stood chair scraping. My inheritance. Wesley. Celeste. I was going to tell you I was fixing it. Bailiff. Judge Brennan said quietly. A court officer moved to Celeste's side as she started crying, hysterical, disbelieving. They helped her from the courtroom. Her sobs echoed even after the door closed. Wesley sat frozen, staring at the table. Judge Brennan looked at me. Something in her expression. Respect, maybe sympathy. We'll take a 30-minute recess. When we return, I'll rule on this petition. And Mr. Morrison from the prosecutor's office, prepare your filing. I gathered my documents and walked out. Behind me, Wesley didn't move. 30 minutes later, we reconvened. Celeste didn't return. Wesley sat alone. Even Hayes had moved his chair slightly away. Judge Brennan entered. We stood. Be seated. She looked tired. Having reviewed all evidence presented, I find no basis whatsoever for questioning Judge Wallace's competency. The medical evaluations are unequivocal. The petition is denied. Wesley didn't move. Furthermore, the evidence suggests this petition was filed in bad faith as retaliation for Judge Wallace's discovery of criminal activity. Mr. Morrison, the state may proceed. The prosecutor stood. Wesley Parker, you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and identity theft. 2 officers approached. Wesley stood mechanically, held out his wrists for the handcuffs. As they let him out, he looked at me once. I saw nothing in his eyes. No fight left. Outside the courthouse, Celeste waited by my car. Her face was swollen from crying. Dad. Celeste, did you know about the inheritance? I discovered it during my investigation. I'm sorry you had to learn that way. She nodded, tears starting again. I didn't know about the forgery. I swear. He told me it was a business investment, that we needed to act fast. But you knew he wanted me gone. She looked away. I thought I don't know what I thought. That we'd help you move somewhere safer. I didn't realize. She stopped. That's not true. I knew. I just didn't want to believe it. You made your choice. I did. She met my eyes. I chose wrong. I'm filing for divorce and I'll testify against him if the prosecutor needs me to. That's a start. Can we eventually? Can we fix this? I considered her. My daughter, my only child. Eventually, maybe. But not now. You need to rebuild your life. Prove you've changed. She nodded. Tyler, he stays with me. When you're stable, we'll arrange visits. She didn't argue. She knew she had no ground to stand on. 3 weeks later, Tyler moved into my house properly. We converted the guest room, Wesley's former office, into his bedroom, painted it blue, bought new furniture. No traces remained of what had been. Celeste visited once a week, supervised at first. Tyler was quiet with her, careful. Healing would take time. Wesley's trial was scheduled for October. The prosecutor had enough evidence for 12 felonies. His attorney was negotiating a plea deal. 5 years probably, maybe 7. The house was mine again, legally, permanently. The forged documents were officially declared fraudulent. The title was clean. In late August, I rebooked the Hawaii trip, but this time I bought 2 tickets. You sure you want to take me, Grandpa? Tyler asked, watching me pack. I'm sure. You deserve a vacation after everything you've been through. Mom says she's sorry. I know she is. Are you going to forgive her? I paused, folding a shirt. Someday, probably, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean things go back to how they were. He thought about that. Is that okay? That things are different. Different isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just honest. The night before we left, I sat on my terrace watching the sunset. Tyler was inside double-checking his suitcase for the 3rd time. I'd won everything I'd fought for. My house, my autonomy, my grandson's safety. Justice served. But the cost was my daughter, at least for now. Family fractured, trust destroyed, years of relationship reduced to supervised visits and careful conversations. Victory in family matters never feels quite like winning. Still, Tyler appeared in the doorway, backpack already on his shoulders, though our flight wasn't until tomorrow. Think they have good pizza in Hawaii? He asked. I'm sure they do. Even better than pepperoni and mushroom. Well, find out together, he grinned. That smile untainted by what his parents had done, by the courtroom revelations, by the arrests and tears. He was healing. He'd be okay. That made it worth it. The next morning, I loaded our suitcases into the car. Tyler buckled in, already reading the guidebook I'd bought him. As I backed out of the driveway, I glanced at the house. My house, secure, mine, protected. I'd been a judge for 30 years. I'd seen justice served 1,000 times in courtrooms, watched verdicts delivered, sentences handed down. But this was the first time I'd had to seek justice for myself. And I'd learned something. The right verdict doesn't always heal the wound. But it stops the bleeding. It creates space for recovery. I'd also learned that kindness requires boundaries. Trust demands verification. Family doesn't excuse betrayal. And sometimes the people you save aren't the ones you expected to lose. Tyler looked up from his book. Ready? Ready. I drove toward the airport, toward Hawaii, toward whatever came next. Behind me, the house grew smaller in the rear-view mirror. Ahead was healing, justice, a new beginning, and a 10-year-old boy who trusted me with the truth when I needed it most. That more than anything was victory. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.